Hello everyone, this is Dariush with another watercolor demonstration, this time an architectural rendering. It's something I've been doing for the past over 30 years actually. I'm going to do a quick demo of a familiar site in my hometown of Washington DC. This is Georgetown University. This picture is nice because it has I can divide it into three layers. The background layer that has the National Cathedral, and then the mid layer has the Georgetown University, and the foreground which has those trees. And for this I will develop a line drawing and then do a quick value study to show the background, midground, and foregrounds, which I'll use as a guide to during my watercolor. I also want to share with you that I use Photoshop to help me out with my illustrations, especially my technical architectural illustrations. Here I'm using it to quickly develop a value study. As I mentioned, will be a light background where the National Monument is. The National Cathedral, and then the midground, which is the university itself, and then with a darker foreground of the trees. And I will use this image throughout my watercoloring to refer to help me apply the paint according to the values studied here. Okay, so here it is. Now let's get started with the painting. I usually, well, depending on the scene, this one I want to have a warm background, so I'm painting the whole background with the yellow raw sienna. And on top I add cobalt blue from the top of the sky. And my board is tilted about 15 degrees or so, which uses gravity to help pull down the watercolor as I paint. So now here I will try to follow the quick sketch that I did, quick study there, to paint layer by layer and get these three different perspective layers that I mentioned before, with the light background of the cathedral and the darker mid-range of the university itself, and then later the darker trees in the foreground. This is just very simplifying the process quickly, because I just want to show how the process works. Of course, you can get into much detail on different projects. This is just a sampling of how I do a typical rendering. Oh, and by the way, I hope you can tolerate the background music. It's one of my old piano practices that I thought would help with this video, and it's copyright free, so hope you can tolerate that. Okay, so continuing on, we just add layer by layer and try to build this up. Of course, as I mentioned, I'm work with Photoshop, so later on I will take this drawing and scan it high res and do some of the work in Photoshop to build up the colors. So I kind of developed this about maybe up to 60–70%, and then do the rest in Photoshop. And these are basically with my architectural illustrations. My other illustrations, it's completely, almost completely done by hand. But with the architectural ones, because they're more technical and sometimes they need to be accurate, so I'll do some of the work in Photoshop so I can make corrections, color adjustments, and things like that. Okay, again, referring to my value study, I try to get this foreground to the dark value of my study there, and also try to work with the midground, the university building itself, and try to bring attention to certain points by introducing contrast, so darks against lights. Now I've scanned this and I've taken it to my Photoshop, cropped it, and the first thing I do is I go to image and apply auto tone, and then later I'll clean it up with the stamp tool. Here I'm adding the highlights for the windows, just little touches here and there. And of course, you can take this as far as you want, as detailed as you want, but in this sample is just a introduction to my technique. Here's the final rendering. And of course, as I mentioned, I can take this much further, apply much more detail as is appropriate. But this, I just wanted to give you a quick demonstration of how I work. I hope you liked it. If you did, please make comments. They will help me make better videos in the future. Thank you so much.